Hello there, Mad Mike here, and welcome back to the channel. And today I wanted to talk about something that was, it's a little bit of kind of an old news type of thing, but I kind of wanted to go over it and something else conjoined with it. And that's the reports that Patty Jenkins has well, this actually was from last week, but Patty Jenkins, who's director of Wonder Woman and Wonder Woman 1984, was originally supposed to do a Rogue Squadron film for Lucasfilm. She has since dropped out of that and moved on to other projects, and that project has been shelved indefinitely. Now, this is the latest in a very long string of production and directorial problems that has plagued Lucasfilm and Disney at large. And I wanted to go over some things on this because this is a bit of an interesting one because we actually did have some people that chimed in on this, some people that do have some inside Hollywood information. And I'm looking specifically from an article from MovieWeb. And basically, that is that Jenkins left because of, or most likely anyway, because of the management style that Lucasfilm likes to have. And this is probably the reason why they have so many issues hanging on to directors. And it's not necessarily a situation where you had a director that came in and they clashed with whatever the franchise is and stuff like that. It wasn't a situation like that. It's more of a micromanaging situation. And again, we've seen a lot of this in the past couple of years, especially with the MCU, where we found out that the directors that are doing those movies aren't even directing the action scenes. The action scenes are written and stuck in the plot well before the script is ever written. So the script is written around the action scenes as opposed to the action scenes happening organically, um, which is a very big problem. But Lucasfilm is kind of its own animal, where it's more of a situation where the people that are doing it they're the people that are directing, I should say, are basically being kind of pigeonholed into doing exactly what the studio wants instead of being allowed to kind of branch out creatively, which is really what you kind of hire a director to do. You hire a director to adapt something and add their little creative touches here and there, which in a lot of cases usually winds up being a very, I shouldn't say always, but in a lot of cases, if it's a capable director, usually winds up being a fairly decent film. Um, Now, these quotes that I'm going to be going over are basically, or I shouldn't say quotes, but basically statements, are coming from Matthew Baloney, not Baloney. I think it's pronounced Bellany. But basically, he's an editor for the Hollywood Reporter, and basically he stated that Patty Jenkins was unhappy with Lucasfilm because of the micromanaging that was involved in the production. Again, like I just mentioned, and also the plot point by committee writing staff. That is scathing. Uh, in terms, I mean, it's one of those things that a lot of people say a lot of the time. People that are kind of on the outside looking in terms of people like me or people that are critics of a lot of Disney and Lucasfilm's projects. But it very rarely is said by somebody who's kind of got the inside information. Usually that's kind of a no-no. Um, but the fact that this is a problem that keeps happening, and they also name several specific directors that they've lost over the past few years. The Game of Thrones producers and writers, David Benioff and Dan Weiss. They both were contracted to do this massive overhaul at Lucasfilm, do I think several films. I think they were signed on for a full trilogy. I think that was supposed to be the Old Republic trilogy. And they then immediately jumped ship and went over to Netflix, where they're apparently very happy. At least it seems that way. Apparently, that was also what happened with Ryan Johnson's trilogy that was supposed to happen. Which there's always a silver lining to things. Um, but it just strikes me as odd that all of these production issues still persist, even though it has been years and years and years of this. And now the industry is starting to blackball Disney, which is even funnier, where a lot of journeyman directors do not want to work for Lucasfilm. And you can say that a little bit, I guess, with the Marvel camp too, even though they've got a fairly decent amount of directors in there right now. I mean, you got Sam Raimi, who's going to be helming Doctor Strange 2. You've got some other notable director, James Gunn's coming back for Guardians of the Galaxy 3, and several other ones that are mixed in there that are relative journeymen that have done a decent amount of films and know what they're doing, and some of them that have a rapport with the company, or at least some of the company's properties. Again, like Raimi and Gunn. But you also have people in there like you also have some people in there that are not all that experienced, like the writers and directors of Captain Marvel, like Ryan Fleck and Anna Boden. They had really no experience doing any kind of a movie that was up to that caliber. And I'm starting to think that the more of those type of hires that we see for these big budgeted films, the more it has to do with the fact that Disney is they're finding it harder and harder to court better directors. And veteran directors, like, high end directors, to people like Ridley Scott, Martin Scorsese, and people like that, who are honestly masters of the craft, even though some of Scott's recent films haven't been that great. Um, they're just like, yeah, we would do it, but they would never give us the creative control that we'd want. So it's one of those funny little things that it's like you've sucked the creativity out of it to such an extent that directors, people that you literally pay to come in and do these things, are like, no, fuck you, I'm not doing it. I mean, when you get to that point where you're literally just taking like bottom of the barrel directors because you have to, not because you want to or because you think that they have any kind of real creative vision. That's what they like to dress it up as. But they take these people in a lot of cases simply because they are cheap. And that is kind of insane when you're thinking of a movie that has what, 250 to $300 million budget, which not all of these movies have, but a lot of them do. Especially the recent ones. The recent ones have been probably around the 150 to 200 range, but still, most of these directors have not dealt with a budget that is that large. And a lot of them do not know what to do with it. I've been over this in the past with the odd hiring choices for some of these movies. But again, it's one of those situations where Lucasfilm is hiring these people, I think, more out of the necessity to get a director and get somebody in the chair, and not really caring about the talent of the individual they are putting in that chair, or caring about what that person actually brings to the table and if they are ready to take on this type of a film. Because that's the other thing too, is that, and it's always been kind of a thing in Hollywood, where you need to pair the right director with the right project. You don't have a guy like, some directors are Renaissance men. You have people like, Robert Zemeckis, at least at this point in his career, Spielberg. God, there's plenty of other ones that I'm just not thinking of off the top of my head. But there's plenty of directors who you can think of as like Renaissance men who've done kind of a little bit of everything. But there's a lot of people that kind of live in a genre. Or they live in a few genres. Or they direct certain types of films really well. And pairing those directors correctly with those projects is really what makes those projects kind of come alive in a lot of senses. They are able to bring that vision to life better than maybe somebody who was not as into those type of movies. Like, you don't have, like, for instance, I would not have Martin Scorsese go direct a Star Wars movie. As insane as that would be, I do not want to have Martin Scorsese go direct a Star Wars movie, because he more or less likes dramas and stuff about, he prefers character studies. Or stuff that's more based around reality, and it's a lot more grounded, as opposed to something that's very fantastical like Star Wars. So that's off the top of my head. That's an example I can give of maybe one of those situations where it would be a good director with a bad movie pairing. Um, so, but again, that's just kind of me. But this stuff with Patty Jenkins is something that's in a long line of production and directorial problems for Lucasfilm. And I do love the fact that Bellany actually points directly out that Kathleen Kennedy is even though she's the one helming the ship, so she's the one that kind of the buck stops there. But he does call her out in this, which is kind of funny. And basically, it's one of those type of things where it's like, it's every director's dream until you actually sign the contract and get in the room with these people and you realize what is actually going on. But like I said, that's just kind of my opinion on the whole thing. I want to know what yours is. Do you think that this is something that's going to just inevitably continue? Do you think that this is something that may come to an end whenever Kennedy decides to relinquish her position as president of the company? Do you think that this is going to keep happening with a lot of projects going forward, where a lot of directors are just going to say no based off of the fact of principle and based off of the fact that they can get work elsewhere for probably the same or better money? Put your thoughts in the comments below. As usual, I like to read them. Hit the bell for notifications, hit the like button, subscribe, and remember, I live my life free of compromise. Do you?